Hey, what's up guys? Today we're going to be checking out the software for the SteelSeries Apex Pro keyboard. So once you install the SteelSeries software on your computer, you're going to be greeted with this menu that shows news, giveaways, and a bunch of random things. But the thing we care about is the engine part here. And this is basically where you configure your lighting settings along with the keyboard macros and shortcuts. Now here you can see gear, which is where you can configure the shortcuts. And up here, this is prism, and this is where you configure the lighting for the keyboard. And you can see by default we have it set to this color shift where it rotates between this purple and blue color. Now firstly, what you can do is you go to presets and you can start using some of their own presets, and you can see that they have a bunch of different fun ones, and there's a lot of cool lighting effects that you can do, like self-destruct, shaved ice, static fade. And if you want to configure your own lighting settings, you go to the effects panel here and you can do off or off. If you don't want any lights, you can do breathe, where it just breathes like so, and then you can do color shift. You can also do single color if you just want it clean and simple. Now if you do use something like the breathing pattern, you can customize the colors that it breathes between along with the animation speeds and size. So here you can make the animation size like a 1 and you can make it fast. So a lot of good customization settings with the keyboard here. Now if you want a different lighting effect and you want to save your old profile, what you do is you click these 3 dots and click add new. We can call it whatever we want. We'll call this light profile 2 and then click save, and then now we have light profile 2 and default. So if I hit light profile 2, we can configure the settings to whatever we want it to be, and then once we're done using it, we can go back to our other profile. So you can have things like a Christmas theme, a 4th of July theme, whatever you're into. Now that pretty much covers the lighting. So if we go ahead and click on the gear tab up here at the top left, and now we can go into configuring the keyboard shortcuts and macros itself. So there's a lot to cover here. So we'll start with some of the more common things like the layout. So this on the left hand side is kind of like your profiles, config 1 to 5. And here you can switch between the settings you change with the keyboard keys over here. I'm gonna go ahead and minimize that so we have more room to work here. Now, secondly, here's the different styles of key shortcuts you can modify. So there's key bindings, there's actuation, dual bindings, dual actuation, meta bindings, and also OLED settings. So we'll start from the beginning. Key bindings, basically what this does is if I click the letter W here, I can customize what the letter W does. So let's say I want the letter W to register the key H. So I click done, and now if I mouse over it, the bubble says that now when I press W, the letter H gets registered. Now if I want to delete that, all I do is click on it and then click the drop down at the top and click default. So go ahead and click done, and now the bubble is gone and it's default. Now if we click back over here, we can see that there's a lot of keys you can customize it to do. You can do editing tools like escape, tab. You can do symbols, which is like equals, plus. You can do typing modes, which is things like insert, caps lock, function 1 through 24, commands such as print screen, pause, break, navigation menus, arrow keys, number pads, number pad shortcuts, modifier keys like shift, control, and alt, and that's about it. Now something cool that you can do here is you can actually modify how many times the key gets pressed within a certain time frame. So if I go ahead and give W the letter A, I can go ahead and click the second drop down under here and say play in times, or repeat while being pressed, or toggle hold. So if I say play in times, I can say within 15 milliseconds after I press it, I want you to activate it 10 times. Maybe 15 is a little fast. Maybe we want to do within half a second. So within half a second, after I click the key down or release, so this icon here says play when you press all the way down or when you release the key. So that what's going to happen here is if I mouse over this, you can see the letter A has a lightning icon, and the lightning just means it'll click 10 times within 500 milliseconds, which is half a second. And you can do this with all of the keys, which might be really good if you're trying to spam something in a game or somewhere in a browser. So the key bindings can be applied to all of the keys up here except the volume knob, the button under it, and the OLED screen up on the top right of the keyboard over here. We'll cover that in a moment here. And speaking of the OLED settings, we'll go ahead and click that right now, OLED, and basically there's really not much you can do here, which is kind of disappointing. I thought you can display stats or specs or like some stock market charts or something, but basically all you can do here is press the image, and all you can do is basically change the image. It's nothing but an image, and that's all it does. So you can also draw on it as well, and that's about it. So basically it's just a display for you to look at, and you know, nothing dynamic like that. But if you are planning to add an image, you can have like a grid here, and then you can also invert the colors. That way it shows up as a different color. It doesn't have to be black and white. It can be white and black inverted, and gives you more clarity depending on the lighting. If you look on my keyboard over here, you can see that it is glowing white, and if I cover the top angle up here, you can see it is showing the white. It is a little flickering right now, but in real life, it doesn't flicker like that. It's just a static image. So now let's go to the Actuation tab. So in the Actuation tab, what this all is basically how fast does the key actuate after you release it. So here you can control the dial down. So if you want it to release as soon as your finger's off the key pretty much, you bring it to the top here. But if you want it to activate as soon as you pretty much press it down, you bring it down over here. And these little milliseconds, they can really mean the difference between winning or losing a game and something more competitive. And these icons over here are just selectors. You can select keys and it'll select which key you want to target. If you want to select a bundle of keys, you can select the all keys, which is going to be these. Something to note is that the arrow keys, the F keys, and these navigation keys cannot be configured. It's only the center part of the keyboard over here that's highlighted. Now you could select a group of keys by selecting the select tool and just dragging your mouse across, and you can configure all of these to be actuated sooner or later. Now we're going to skip the dual bindings menu for now because all of these keys are deactivated, and the reason for that is because in order to use the dual bindings, you have to use the dual actuation. So dual actuation is basically the same thing as the regular actuation, except you're controlling two keys instead of one simultaneously. So what we have to do is we have to select two keys and then change their actuation time. So we go ahead and select the letter A and S. You can just drag them to both there, or if you want to select two different ones, you just hold shift and you can start selecting all of the keys. So I'm going to go ahead and do the letter A and S, and now I have them both selected, and I can select the actuation to happen sooner or later by dragging it up or down. Now one thing to note is if I drag the toggle bar to the bottom here, you're going to get an error because this actuation is lower than the actuation set here. So it has to be past here because everything automatically actuates above the halfway point. So you only have to release the key halfway through. When you do dual actuation, you have to go past the halfway point like this, and now you don't get that error. So basically, maybe I wanted to actuate not right when I press down, but when I slightly let go of something, now the A and S key will activate quicker than everything else, and you can see the difference. These activate when you're halfway off the key press, and these activate pretty much right when you let go. So now that we have these two set to be released sooner rather than later, now we can go to dual bindings and configure these. And maybe when we let go, what happens is the media controls fire off, or maybe a specific keyboard shortcut or a macro that we record, it gets fired off. And that's how you control these dual bindings along with dual actuations. They work kind of together, so you have to configure them both to work in sync. This is more of a pro gamer feature. It's not really for people who do gaming casually. It's more for people who are like in competitive esports where there's like money on the line, championships, and they need every little millisecond to have that competitive edge over their opponents. So that was pretty much the run through of the software. As you can tell, this keyboard does have a lot of advanced features that a lot of more budget keyboards don't have in the software. So that's why some gamers pay top dollar to get that competitive edge through the software. I mean, this keyboard does go for $190-ish as of making this video, so it's definitely not a cheap one. It's definitely more on the higher end side of things, and it's definitely worth it if you can utilize those actuation keys and some of the key bindings that you can control with the software. Now, if you haven't seen my full review on this keyboard where I cover the hardware, be sure to click that video right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.